time until she could get away. When she finally could, it was 1955, and she was 67 years old. She stood 5'2" and weighed 150 pounds, and the only survival training she had were lessons learned earning calluses on her farm. She had a mouthful of false teeth and bunions the size of prize marbles. She had no map, no sleeping bag, no tent. She was blind without her glasses, and she was utterly unprepared if she faced the wrath of a snowstorm, not all that rare on the trail. 5 years before, a freezing Thanksgiving downpour killed more than 300 in Appalachia, and most of them had houses. Their bones were buried on these hillsides. She had prepared for her trek the only way she knew how. The year before, she worked at a nursing home and tucked away what she could of her $25 a week paycheck until she finally earned enough quarters to draw the minimum in Social Security, $52 a month. She had started walking in January while living with her son Nelson in Dayton, Ohio. She began walking around the block and extended it a little more each time until she was satisfied by the burn she felt in her legs. By April, she was hiking 10 miles a day. Before her now grew an amazing sweep of elms, chestnuts, hemlocks, dogwoods, spruces, firs, mountain ashes, and sugar maples. She'd see crystal-clear streams and raging rivers and vistas that would steal her breath. Before her stood mountains, more than 300 of them topping 5,000 feet, the ancient remnants of a range that hundreds of millions of years before pierced the clouds and rivaled the Himalayas in their majesty. The Unicas, the Smokies, the Chiowas, the Nantahelas. The long, sloping Blue Ridge, the Kittatinny Mountains, the Hudson Highlands, the Taconic Ridge and the Berkshires, the Green Mountains, the White Mountains, the Mahoosic Range, Saddleback, Bigelow, and finally, 5 million steps away, Katahdin. And between here and there, a bouquet of ways to die. Between here and there lurked wild boars, black bears, wolves, bobcats, coyotes, backwater outlaws, and lawless hillbillies, poison oak, poison ivy, and poison sumac, anthills and black flies and deer ticks and rabid skunks, squirrels and raccoons. And snakes, black snakes, water moccasins, and copperheads. And rattlers. The young man who hiked the trail 4 years before told the newspapers he'd killed at least 15. There were a million heavenly things to see, and a million spectacular ways to die. 2 people knew Emma Gatewood was here, the cab driver and her cousin Myrtle Trowbridge, with whom she had stayed the night before in Atlanta. She had told her children she was going on a walk. That was no lie. She just never finished her sentence, never offered her own offspring the astonishing, impossible particulars. All 11 of them were grown anyhow and independent. They had their own children to raise and bills to pay and lawns to mow, the price of participation in the great immobile American dream. She was past all that. She'd send a postcard. If she told them what she was attempting to do, she knew they'd ask, why? That's a question she'd face day and night in the coming months, as word of her hike spread like fire through the valleys, as newspaper reporters learned of her mission and intercepted her along the trail. It was a question she'd playfully brush off every time they asked. And how they'd ask! Groucho Marx would ask, Dave Garroway would ask, Sports Illustrated would ask, the Associated Press would ask, the United States Congress would ask. Why? Because it was there, she'd say. Seemed like a good lark, she'd say. She'd never betray the real reason. She'd never show those newspaper men and television cameras her broken teeth or busted ribs, or talk about the town that kept dark secrets or the night she spent in a jail cell. She'd tell them she was a widow. Yes. She'd tell them she found solace in nature.